Good evening, I'm Smriti Sudesh and welcome to Above the Fold. In this episode, we take a look at the WHO's warning over the Ebola outbreak in Central Africa, the Modi-Meloni meeting, the scraping of K-Rail, and more. So stay tuned for our full report. Global concern is intensifying over the Ebola outbreak in Central Africa, with more than 500 suspected infections and at least 131 suspected deaths reported in the Democratic Republic of Congo. The WHO has declared the outbreak a public health emergency of international concern, its highest level of global health alert, and is examining whether experimental vaccines and therapies can be deployed to contain it.
Beyond the confirmed cases, there are almost 600 suspected cases and 139 suspected deaths. We expect those numbers to keep increasing, given the amount of time the virus was circulating before the outbreak was detected. After declaring the PHEIC, I immediately convened an emergency committee under the IHR, which met yesterday and agreed that the situation is a public health emergency of international concern, but is not a pandemic emergency.
Meanwhile, US Secretary of State Marco Rubio has criticized the WHO for being a little late in identifying the outbreak, even as Washington ramps up airport screening and visa precautions. The African Union has also called for urgent international cooperation ahead of next week's India-Africa Forum Summit in New Delhi. To explain the risks of the outbreak, our health editor Remya Kannan joins us.
The WHO recently declared that the Ebola outbreak in Central Africa was a global concern. It declared that this would be a public health emergency of international concern. As on 16th May 2026, going by the WHO statistics, 8 laboratory confirmed cases, 246 suspected cases, and 8 suspected deaths, all from Ebola, were reported in the Ituri province of the Democratic Republic of Congo. 2 lab-confirmed cases were also detected in nearby Uganda, and this has alerted authorities. So, the actual area has been confined to a small border district between the DRC and Uganda, but the ongoing conflict in the region and displacement of people has put the detection of cases and access to care under a shadow. Now, how is India responding? While the risk of Ebola outbreak in India is very, very low, as the WHO has announced a global emergency for Ebola, it is incumbent upon the government to take some action in order to up its surveillance and monitoring of the situation, particularly in the ports of entry and exit. Airports will have scanners that will check people for symptoms of Ebola. Now, when we talk about symptoms of Ebola, it could be high fever, chills, sore throat. These are all the first symptoms that appear. And it is possible to isolate people with such conditions and then test them further. If the risk is low, it still is a globally connected world, and it is better to be safe than sorry. So, Ebola virus disease is a zoonotic disease, and it can be really severe and often fatal in humans. In fact, it is said that it could cause deaths in up to 50% of the confirmed cases. Of course, this could be lower depending upon the virus strain and access to emergency care that patients have. But what we should be careful is that it is now capable of spreading between humans wherever there is direct contact with blood, secretions, bodily fluids of those infected, and even contaminated surfaces. There is one other issue that we must keep in mind with this outbreak. There are 3 different viruses known to cause Ebola. The current strain that is causing the outbreak is the Bundi-Bujo strain. It is particularly rare. There are only 2 documented outbreaks that this particular strain has caused. And the WHO chief has announced that he is worried that the numbers might be more than what has been detected so far, because there are a lot of unknowns with this particular strain.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi met Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni in Italy, with the 2 leaders holding talks on trade, clean energy, technology and security against the backdrop of the emerging Indo-Mediterranean corridor. At a joint press conference after the talks, Meloni said India and Italy had decided to revitalize bilateral relations and expand cooperation across key sectors. The two countries also decided to elevate their ties to a special strategic partnership. Modi also met Italian President Sergio Mattarella with discussions focusing on artificial intelligence, critical minerals, space, nuclear energy, and cultural ties between the two countries. Speaking of cultural linkages, Modi also gifted Meloni a packet of melody candies, playing off the ongoing joke among the netizens on the two leaders' close friendship. Melody is a combination of Modi and Melody. While the gesture went viral on social media, it did not sit well with the opposition leaders. In a post on X, Rahul Gandhi said an economic storm is raging over our heads, and our Prime Minister is busy handing out candies in Italy. In other news, Russian President Vladimir Putin held summit talks with Chinese President Xi Jinping in Beijing amid deepening ties between the two countries. This is Putin's 25th visit to China and comes as the two sides mark 30 years of their strategic partnership and 25 years of the Treaty of Good Neighborliness and Friendly Cooperation. According to the Chinese Foreign Ministry, the two leaders discussed bilateral ties, energy cooperation, and regional and international issues of common concern. Putin said Russia is ready to continue expanding energy supplies to China, while the two sides also reached a broad understanding on the long delayed Power of Siberia 2 gas pipeline project through Mongolia, though no further details were announced. The visit comes as Russia continues to face Western sanctions over the war in Ukraine, with China remaining one of the biggest buyers of Russian oil and gas. Xi Jinping said China would share development opportunities with Russia as part of its latest 5-year economic plan. China has also extended its visa free policy for Russian citizens until the end of 2027. Analysts say the visit is diplomatically significant, coming just days after the US President Donald Trump traveled to Beijing. With the 2027 census exercise underway, the Supreme Court said today that there is nothing wrong with accounting for caste. Chief Justice of India Surya Kant said that any government of the day must know how many people are backward and how many need welfare. This is a matter of policy. The comments came following a plea that caste should not be included in the census. The plea emphasized that caste data could be misused extensively by politicians and corporate entities. Still, the Supreme Court dismissed the case since this is a matter of policy and is not a court's domain. The Cabinet Committee on Political Affairs had approved the caste enumeration in Census 2027 at a meeting held in April last year, making it a major feature of the upcoming exercise. The last comprehensive nationwide caste census in India was conducted in 1931 during colonial rule. Focus now shifts to Kerala, where concerns are rising again over the deadly brain-eating amoeba infection after a 73-year-old woman from Nellikuri in Ernakulam district died of primary amoebic meningoencephalitis. Health officials said she developed fever and severe headache on May 6th and died on May 15th. Authorities suspect she contracted the infection after washing her face with canal water. Officials said the disease is caused by Naegleria fowleri, an amoeba found in warm freshwater sources. Following the death, nearly 20 contacts were monitored, while authorities superchlorinated nearby water sources and urged people to avoid unsafe or stagnant water bodies. In other news, the UDF-led Kerala government has scrapped the controversial SilverLine rail project. More in our report.
The Kerala government has officially scrapped the controversial SilverLine semi-high-speed rail project linking Thiruvananthapuram and Kasaragod. The decision was taken at the cabinet meeting of the new Congress-led UDF government on Tuesday.
ഈ പദ്ധതി നടക്കുന്നില്ല, പദ്ധതി ഉപേക്ഷിക്കുകയും ചെയ്തു. നിരവധി വർഷങ്ങളായി ഈ ഭൂമി വിൽക്കാനോ വാങ്ങാനോ ഇതൊന്ന് പണയപ്പെടുത്താനോ മകളുടെ വിവാഹത്തിന് ഒരു ലോൺ എടുക്കാൻ പോലും പറ്റാതെ ഈ സാധാരണക്കാരായ ആളുകൾ മുഴുവൻ വിഷമിക്കുകയാണ്. അതുകൊണ്ടാണ് ഏതായാലും പദ്ധതി ഉപേക്ഷിച്ചതുകൊണ്ട് ആ പദ്ധതി കേന്ദ്ര ഗവൺമെൻറ്റും അംഗീകാരം തന്നില്ല. ഞങ്ങളതിനെ എതിർത്ത് SilverLine എതിർത്ത് ഞങ്ങൾ സമരം ചെയ്തതാണ്. അതിൻ്റെ അടിസ്ഥാനത്തിൽ ആ ഉത്തരവ് റദ്ദാക്കാനും ഈ ഭൂമി ഏറ്റെടുക്കൽ നോട്ടിഫിക്കേഷൻ ഡീനോട്ടിഫൈ ചെയ്യാനുമുള്ള സുപ്രധാനമായ തീരുമാനം എടുത്തിട്ടുണ്ട്.
The ambitious rail corridor had originally been proposed and pushed by the previous LDF government under the K-Rail initiative. Addressing the media after the meeting, Chief Minister V.D. Satish announced that all land acquired for the project will be denotified and the yellow boundary stones placed across several districts would be removed. The Chief Minister, however, did not rule out the possibilities of the Congress-led United Democratic Front government coming up with its own semi-high speed rail project. He said the government was not against a rail project which will not affect the state environmentally or financially. The Silver Line project had triggered widespread protests across Kerala since 2022, with residents, opposition parties, and environmental groups raising concerns over displacement, land acquisition, and ecological impact. The BJP had also opposed the project, citing the lack of approval from the union government.
To give us more insights, we are joined by our Kerala resident editor S. Anandan.
Interestingly, among the organizations that resisted the Silver Line project was Kerala Shastra Sahitya Parishad, a people science movement with left leanings. The study carried out by Kerala Shastra Sahitya Parishad concluded that the project wasn't environmentally viable. It should not become part of the state's economic priorities, the KSSP argued. Silver Line kicked off a debate on three major issues. Some sections argued for a change in alignment to make it environmentally viable. Some asked whether Kerala needed a semi-high speed line or a high speed line in the long run. There were also arguments favoring a third railway line parallel to the existing ones along the length of the state. But the way the government went ahead with the project and demarcated the proposed route by planting yellow stones elicited stiff opposition from the people, with the yellow stones themselves acquiring almost symbolic value and the conflict turning into a political strife on the streets. With the center declining permission, the project was already in cold storage, and just ahead of the elections, there was a move on the part of then LDF government to replace it with a high-speed railway line project. The UDF manifesto for the present elections, the just concluded elections, had proposed a high-speed line in collaboration with railways. But we have to wait and see whether that materializes, and if it does, how it is going to be.
Meanwhile, Chief Minister V.D. Satishan also sparked a political debate after using his full name during the oath-taking ceremony, with critics including some within the Congress questioning the use of a caste surname. In response, Satishan defended his actions, stating he was simply using his legally documented name, Vadasheri Damodara Menon Satishan, and honoring his late father. Let's now turn to the Hindu Roundup for some of our exclusive content. In an editorial titled First and Foremost on the Bodhshala ruling, the piece argues that the Madhya Pradesh High Court's finding that the Bodhshala Kamal Mola complex was originally a Hindu temple risks weakening the spirit of the Places of Worship Act 1991, which was intended to preserve the religious character of sites as they stood at independence. The editorial says the ruling, drawing heavily from the Ayodhya judgment and archaeological interpretations, could encourage fresh disputes over other contested religious sites. It also warns that courts are increasingly being drawn into politically charged battles over history and faith, arguing that the shared use and coexistence should take precedence over attempts to determine first ownership of religious spaces. Tap the card above to watch the editorial on the Hindu's Originals YouTube channel. In the latest episode of Climate Economy, Deputy Business Editor Kunal Shankar examines whether a shrinking global population will really ease the climate crisis. From global demographic trends to energy consumption patterns, the episode challenges some widely held assumptions about population and sustainability. Here's a snippet.
According to estimates by the United Nations, the world population is expected to start shrinking in the latter part of this century. Put simply, we will be seeing the global population reducing in our lifetimes, maybe in yours and not mine. But would fewer people mean a lesser strain on our resources, especially the ones used to produce energy and electricity, the backbone of modern human life? Our movies certainly seem to think so. From Inferno's villain Bertrand Zobris seeing overpopulation as humanity's biggest threat, to Thanos' pursuit of the Infinity Stones to restore balance in the universe by wiping half of its population, a lower population has often been portrayed as the solution for humanity's problems. But is that really the case? Does a lower population mean a lower strain on our resources? In other words, will a shrinking population lead to less demand for energy and in turn emissions? The answer might seem to be a straightforward yes, but data really tells us a very different story. To answer that, let's start with one country that's been living with this question for over a decade, the land of the rising sun, Japan. As per Japan's official data, the country saw the first decline in its population in the 2015 census and has been seeing a consistent shrinking of its population ever since. But did the decline in Japan's population result in lesser consumption of energy as well? Yes, it did. As per data by the International Energy Agency, Japan produced approximately 9,82,000 gigawatt hour of electricity in total in 2024, a decline of around 8% as compared with the year 2000.
And that's it for today. Thank you for watching. Please share your thoughts on today's episode in the comment section. If you found this video useful, don't forget to share it and save the Above the Fold playlist so you never miss an update.